Okay,
Hi, Jolene.
I'm going to tell you folks
Wanna
that
see Meg?
I have the first reader selected, and all the other readers, I'm going to pick the name out of a hat to go in order. Okay?
Mhm.
If it's not okay, I'm screwed. Because
Doesn't matter. You're the host, it doesn't matter.
I already
Sounds
just
very
signed it.
equitable.
That's all. That's all.
Okay, welcome to December's FBomb, the last one of the year. And thank you all. Our first reader is Austin Alexis. He's the author of full-length poetry collection, Privacy Issues, Broadside Lotus Press, Magic Poetry Award, and 2 chapbooks for poets we're proud of. His fiction, poetry, and reviews have appeared in Barrow Street. Austin, you're up. But you have to unmute.
You're muted,
Okay.
Austin.
Hi,
Yeah.
everyone. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay, great. I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much, Paul, for having me. Okay, so I'll read 2 flash fictions. The first one is 488 words. The Procrastinator. Frances jumps up from the piano bench, frustrated by her own bad playing. How many wrong notes can she bear to hit and hear? She came to her parents' house to practice because she was wasting time at her own apartment. And now she's in a knot, a rehearsal knot. Concert coming up next week, and she's all slippery fingers. In a huff, she goes to her parents' attic, fools around with dusty furniture, anything to escape the piano downstairs. But there's a piano, an old upright, in this attic too, covered with a sheet. The sheet gives off the striking stink of sweaty socks. The piano's decrepit bench is shedding pieces of wood. Frances turns away from the upright, not wanting to be reminded of the scales, arpeggios, preludes, sonatas that escape perfection under her fingers. She putters around, finds an antique sewing machine, a black and white photo of Native Americans roaming a prairie, a beat-up oak table that looks sad, dejected. Frances pokes around in a corner, spots a tarnished object. In her curiosity, her eyebrows come together above her nose. It takes only 3 seconds for her to figure out what the object is. One of those lamps that genies are supposed to live in, ready to grant wishes. She lifts the heavy metal item, brings it close to her face, and speaks to it as she would to a cat or a poodle. I'm not going to ask for 3 wishes, if that's what you think, she says to the lamp. First of all, I don't know what I want. She stares at it as if half expecting an answer. The silence around her sings, vibrates. She has a musician's awareness of quiet. What do you want? Oh, you need a little cleaning, Frances says, rubbing the lamp with her denim shirt sleeve. With this gesture, smoke fills the attic. Frances drops the lamp, coughs, falls to the floor, waves smoke from her face. Coughs, waves, coughs, waves. The gray-white smoke abruptly clears. She turns to see someone, a short man, at the piano, tearing the sheet off the old upright. Then he sits at the piano, starts to play. She is drawn as if she's in a trance to the melody and the harmonies she hears. Mesmerized, she slowly strolls to the piano, sits on the bench next to the man as he continues his recital. His dark curly hair bounces as he hits the keys, clicking on the keyboard, his fingernails, tapping on the upright pedals, his stout feet. He slides over to give Frances more room on the bench. Her right hand shoots up to the keys. She plays along in harmony and rhythm with the piano's delicious sounds. The two musicians glance at each other, he with a confident grin, she with a sly smile. Her smile deepens when she recognizes the man is Beethoven. And now this other one is 300 words, including the title. Insomnia. Sleep teases me but won't settle in my bed, my bedroom, my apartment. My mind's not mine, but belongs to fretting about everything and nothing. Dust landing atop the intercom box bothers my peace. I worry about gray water stains in the toilet bowl. Is there a rash at the back of my ankles, or am I imagining minuscule swellings creeping from my heel to my shirt, to my shin? I don't understand my sleeplessness. I don't assume my brain remembers what sleep is. When I close my eyes, weird thingamajigs play hula hoops under my eyelids. I push the blankets off me, haul my tired body out of the bed, and trudge to the mailboxes in my building's lobby. I hadn't checked for mail during a long day of procrastination. In my pajamas and bathrobe, I reach into the tin box, wonder what it would be like to sleep in there. Peaceful, I guess. No windows, no refrigerator grunts to fuel my nervousness. As I pull out a lone envelope, a bill from the gas company, my neighbor barges into the corridor from the outside. "What are you doing up at 3:45 in the morning?" she asks. "What are you doing gallivanting around at this hour?" I ask. "I was out having a good time," she says, while scooting past me toward the stairs. "But if I'd been home like you, I'd be fast asleep. Good night," she says, disappearing up the steps. If only I could be fast asleep. If only my tiredness would arrive at its final station. Back in my apartment, I sit at my desk. I write a check to the gas company and glance at the desk calendar for the correct date. Without wanting to, without meaning to, I register. It's 2 days before the 3rd anniversary of my lover's death. Thank you.
Terrific readings. Thank you. And now to the fedora. Francine Witt is our next reader, and her new book is Just Outside the Tunnel of Love. Other than that, she has done nothing this year.
Yeah. Okay. Guilty. I'm just going to read one story. It's a little longer than usual. And it's my Wordle story. It was published in Bending Genres. Robert and Meg, their baby. And I remember when I submitted it, I was thinking, oh, I hope it gets published soon before people forget what Wordle is. So that didn't happen. But so just, Wordle is, you have 5 chances. It's a word game. 5 chances to get from a start word of 5 letters to an end word of 5 letters. And you keep guessing the letters as you go along. So I'll just read each section and I'll say what the word was that it progressed to. This is called Radio to Knoll. Radio. Again, I wake to adult contempo, Taylor Swift eking into my dreams. Why can't I grow up? I say out loud to my husband, who is already in the shower, steady thrush of water. He doesn't need an alarm. Love, he says, is what jets him out of bed. I want to think he means love of his morning coffee. We preset the Keurig the night before, and it waits for him while beamy and steamy and I pop. I want to think he means love of the crisp iron shirt he will put on, how the starchy smell makes everything seem new again. I want to think that this is what he means by love. I know that's not what he means. Then opine is the next word. I'm up now. My husband sits across from me at the breakfast table, the morning paper spread out in front of him. He is eating the frozen waffles he likes so much, jelly, no butter. He says he likes a burst of fruit. He opines on the paper, stocks and murders and stocks. He never mentions his secret girlfriend, which is all I really want to know about. I want him to opine on the length of her hair, the color. Is there a burst of anything when he kisses her? Does touching her breast make him feel new, like an iron shirt makes him feel new? Then the next word is knots. Eddie, who is not my husband, has been teaching me to tie knots. Says it's a useful and undertaught skill. He says, you wait. One day you will be, when you least expect it, you will want to tie something and make sure it's as tight as can be. Eddie, who is not my husband, always smells like musk and sex he didn't shower off. I would breathe him all day if I could. Then the next word is knock. My husband has taken to knocking on the door whenever he enters a room, even if the door is open. He does that thing where he says, knock, knock, when rapping on the door jamb. Knock, knock, he will say, like I don't see his starchy, lying, fruit-filled self standing there waiting for me to acknowledge. Like maybe he wants to reboot me like a computer and start over, where he and I meet for the first time, and he would have to make sure I know he's there before he shatters me into 1,000 pieces. Then the next word is known. It is not exactly known where and when my husband ran off with his girlfriend. I know there's a half jar of jelly left over, so it's been since then. This is where another story, the where is another story. Eddie, who is not my husband, is sitting now at the foot of the bed. He says if I had known how to tie a knot, I could have secured my husband, maybe to an armchair, maybe to the breakfast table. He says people always make the same mistake about other people, that they will be exactly where you left them. Eddie, who is not my husband, still smells with sex he didn't shower off. He is naked right there, right then. He crawls towards me with a silky scarf between his teeth. And then the final word is knoll. Definition, a hillock, a mound, most likely green and grassy, most likely peaceful, most likely a really good metaphor for love if you lean that sort of way, to make everything a metaphor. like years pushed all together, and it only adds up to a mound instead of the mountain you were counting on. A wide open field with a small bump of soil, and there you are, knowing all the knots in the goddamn world, with nothing tall enough or sturdy enough to tie anything to. Thank you.
It was terrific, Francine.
Thank you.
Roxanne Hoffman runs the independent literary press Poets Who Are Prada with Jack Cooper. Her words can be found in cyberspace, the Performance Poetry Preservation Project, Scarlet Literary Magazine, and HIV, Here and Now. Set to music, David Morneau's Love Songs. On the silver screen, 2005 indie flick, Love and the Vampire. And in print, The Bandana Republic, a literary anthology by gang members and their affiliates. And most recently, New York City from the Inside, New York City through the eyes of the poets. Roxanne.
Hello, everybody. Just give me 1 second. Because of course, like I wasn't prepared to go right away. Hang on.
Does anyone want to buy Roxanne's spot?
Okay, here we go. I'm sorry, I'm reading from my phone, so you can't see my face. You just get to see the picture. Okay, so these are, I would say, more narrative poems than actually micro, but we'll call them micro for this moment. All aboard, abracadabra, after the lady vanishes, Hitchcock, 1938. Avalanche, bombs away, begonias bang your dome, bring on the starry night, concussed and cussing, a child bride calling for your duena, till she envelops you in a field of fresh scythed fragrance, fingers the fevered forehead, the fogged up plate of glass that reassures you still live and breathe. Gray-haired, gentle lady, her hair is tweed, her Harriman's herbal, her hushaby lullaby, her hymnal humming harmony at her hip, her helping hands that steady yours, instinct or injury's insult, or more likely a station's abrupt interjection jolts your mental journaling with knowledge of loss. Miss? My music teacher, nowhere, only passengers, questions and railmen, strangers surveying timetables, take tea in the dining car, unimpressionable, vague witnesses, more concerned with whistle stops and weather delays than some woman's wanderings. Wait, her wardrobe on a countess, quite the wallop. Wheels whirl the world. You worry the welt on your twin deer heads mounted on the office wall of a famed brain surgeon. Hello, that wise ass from last night wakes you mid wobble, warm and welcoming bicephalous nature, the ethnomusicologist, a winking Xenagogue offering tonic. Both of you now lit like Xmas trees, you yawn aloud and laudably. Zlon, Zabreeze, Zuglo, zips by indistinct from flicker of sunlight traces her handiwork upon the window, and charging down the moving corridors you go. Miss Fry, Miss Fry. No, you're in a war zone. That's one. Just take the other one.
Roxanne, is that it?
No, I actually have one more if I have time. This is really short. Mr. Memory or target practice. Agent British contrives diversion, escapes firing gunshots. Hugs incidental Joe, knife in back, leaves map. Next news, one, online. Police in pursuit, prep on the random. He now, run for your life or steps. 39, United villains waiting. X on back, you zippity zip. Thank you.
Bill Merkley loves short stories, short films, and really short songs. His work appears in Best Microfiction 2021 and was nominated for Best Small Fictions 2022. He lives in New Jersey. Bill Merkley.
Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
These are more like 3 CNF micros that I've been trying to rework. So it's still a work in progress, but I thought I'd put them together in a kind of December triptych. The first one's called Unsung Hero. We used to imagine the unsung heroes, the people lost to time, who were the first to do something, try a food, form a joke, make a simple tool. Lately, I wonder about the first people to sing a major triad, how it might have felt to collectively conjure that magic from within themselves, to behold that new and holy sound, and what that must have opened for them. I remember how it felt to build chords in the choir, but I'd heard music all my life and knew what to expect. Still, it was transcendent to be one of the instruments. And then I imagined the first person to flat the third, who made the triad minor and knew it wasn't a mistake, knew it wasn't evil, and wept just the same. The next one's called Fine Tuning. At 16, I declared I would study medicine. The following summer, I visited Germany. Even with my poor German, I could tell my grandmother was proud. While shopping with my cousins, I bought the Beatles' White Album. I'd never heard it, but knew something of its mythic reputation. I listened that night, alone, with headphones, during a thunderstorm. Though Ringo bade me good night, I couldn't sleep. I wanted to know what those 4 guys knew, wanted to make others feel like this. I went to Germany wanting to be a heart specialist. I came back wanting to be John Lennon. And the last one is called Dakota Cats. We have been hiding because it has been very noisy. We know where all the good hiding places are. Nobody owns them. You run for the nearest spot when you need to. Usually it is very calm. We can go where we like. John and Mother are very nice to lie on. So is Sean, now that he has stopped petting us too hard and pulling our tails. There is a lot of music and laughing. Sometimes John plays the piano. Mostly he sits on the big bed and plays guitar. We like the big bed too. Mother is often down the hall talking to people while John is on the floor, singing to Sean and making him laugh. Other people come and go all the time. They play with us too, and sometimes feed us. We love the kitchen best, not just because the food and water are there, but because it is warm and smells so good. It must have been fashioned from a late afternoon sunbeam. John likes bringing home surprises for Mother and Sean. One day he surprised us with a giant climbing tower covered in carpet and rope. He acted like he had found the best thing in the world. He had. There used to be more of us. One day, the one they called Alice, they never learn our real names, was scared by a loud noise and jumped out an open window. She did not come back. It was the only time we ever saw John cry. Sure, the three of them could be sad from time to time, but we all know how to fix that. This was different. Today, we came out from hiding. There is sadness, worse than when Alice left. We try to fix it, but this is different. We have not seen John yet. He must be outside, though. We can hear him singing. People are singing with him. Maybe he found Alice. Thanks.
Bill, that was terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.
Valerie Fox has published writing in a variety of journals, including Juked, Ruby, Hanging Loose, OK Donkey, Philadelphia Stories, Ellipsis Scene, The Fair Reflects in the Cafe Real. Stories she has written have been included in the Best Small Fictions and Best Microfiction annuals. Recently, she published The Real Sky, a handmade collaborative artist book with visual artist Jacqueline Nimiak in an edition of 26. She recently joined New Flash Fiction Review as managing editor. Valerie.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Paul, for inviting me, and just so inspiring to be here and hear everybody's wonderful work. So I'm just going to read two micros here, and they both, in both of them, I'm exploring a character, and I guess in the stories that are connected by character, I'm exploring mostly this a sort of relationship between sisters over a lifetime. This is called Early Days with Eugene. My sister Morgana, the psychic, sets me up with Eugene and predicts we'll hit it off. You can thank me later, she says. You can take me out for champagne and a Spanish omelet, but you won't. So I meet Eugene at a wine bar in the maze-like sprawling mall I hardly know my way around, except to find my hair cutter, who is a doll and can take off 5 to 10 years with her snipping off of anybody. In there, it's Northern California in a nutshell. Usually I'm honest, but I lie and tell Alice Eugene I love video games. Immediately, I get caught up in the one he created. It has 9 circles, like hell, only more fun. At first, nothing can upset honey-tongued Eugene. He stays pretty calm. I love all animals, even snakes. Maybe that comes from growing up on the forgotten farm. And I notice that Eugene doesn't blink very often. My new man draws out and starts to heal the hapless child I once was. Sitting cross-legged, we play all night. I can't stop winning the game, surprising myself, and Eugene can't stop touching my hands, my face, my hair. I tell Morgana every detail. Just like when we were children and used to debrief nightly about Dad's latest. My sister was on the bottom bunk and I was in the top one. I got used to being up in the air like that. We would talk together while the house was asleep. It's where I learned how to tell the truth in the dark. And this is my sister Morgana humming. Thanks. My sister Morgana humming, kind of going back to the early days that got referenced at the end of the first story. My pincer-footed sister Morgana scatters food to our chickens in the kitchen garden out on the rugged farm. It being her turn again, and it being my turn to scan the horizon for regiments. And my sister is humming a well-known song that contains a rumor about the two of us and our terse exchanges, which it is bad enough that we must endure doing and hearing, but her joining this chorus about meeting a man on the road in some dream journey is just going too far, especially as all I did was suggest to her that she put out the fire in her hair, the one with antlers. So the spat doesn't add up to much in the end, as we still have to do all our family farming by hand, and Morgana, for the 100th time, pulls the desiccated newspaper clipping out of her apron pocket, explaining how just like the wellness mogul Bernard McFadden, we could offer city hotel comfort in the midst of lush country greenery, like this farm, a place to get thin or experience positive energy. If only Uncle Teddy, who has been wandering around the grounds wearing only a towel and whose bed of nails has left no marks on his body, would give us his generous go-ahead. All the while, a large ham hangs like a bat from a fruit tree, quite tempting, a badge I can't unsee. Then Morgana says that thing about how I smell, then I can't forget it. Then we stay up all night drawing up our business plan. Then she and I call a truce and start building a nest out of branches and rain. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. Robert Vaughn is the author of 6 books, and his latest is called Askew. He's the editor-in-chief at Bending Genres, which we all love.
Thank you,
Robert.
Paul. Thanks so much. It's so nice to see so many friends here. And also happy holidays to everyone. I'm going to start with a piece that is called Living Room Songs. And it was just published in the December issue of the Argonaut, which our friend Sheldon Compton is the EIC. Living Room Songs. There was 3 months of 11th grade. You stayed home, recuperating from an illness mostly old people get. As if a hot iron pressed against your back and chest, the pain tasted like burnt beans. Shades of the earlier summer, I transformed from boy into man, an afternoon in a tent with cards and a knife. I couldn't stay warm. What other absences have I experienced? The way the rain daily drenches my hair and trousers, the dawn's indentation over Haleakala, your touch, a broken ankle, the creeping bougainvillea. You're leaving. You are not ready for this. You can't reconcile the sadness. Feel the flight of cranes with so many missing pieces. Thank you, thanks. Askew is my latest book, as Paul mentioned. I'm gonna read a piece from here. This is the piece the wonderful people at Atlas and Alice, Benjamin and Kathy, nominated for Best Microfictions recently. This is called Candy Crushes. Todd. We'd read our book reports aloud in my treehouse. He'd read first. His dimples and his cupid lips. He played clarinet, and on the opposite side of the room, I blew the baritone. He never looked at me during band. Alex. Walked him to his dentist appointment in 7th grade, went back to his house to play Mario Brothers. Our vice principal, Mr. Nash, showed up at his door. We hid in his parents' closet. Marlon, you didn't need me at all. Your eyes were a room. Your lower body was a suggestion. It was like cats in water. They'll sit in the sink, waiting for you to turn on the faucet. Ben, I hope you are in the depths of a new invention, far away from the trailer and the chain-linked fence, that picnic table. I imagine you in a canoe on some Wisconsin lake. Griffin, when I close my eyes, I can see our tennis matches, balls bouncing, aces, winners, losers, and set points. The cool August evenings, the ache of school looming. Thank you. Thanks. I'm going to read just one last short piece. And this was actually my first chapbook, and Gloria from Trevina Barva Press published it. It's called Microtones. This is a good seasonal happy kind of piece. As you know, I like to write those happy things. This is called Turbidity. Holidays are hard. I'm going to take a walk, escape the silence of this house. I was never home on the range. Hospital corners are still beats me. Invisible, unlike driftwood tossed ashore. Under pewter skies, elephantine clouds, where seldom is heard an encouraging word. No slow cookpot solutions, while you're no longer talking and I'm no longer hearing. There's nothing cooking here. There's something I forgot. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Robert. Patricia Bedar is a California native, raised in the Port of Los Angeles area. Her stories have been published in Wigleaf, Smokeland Quarterly, The Pinch, Pitt Chapel, and Atticus Review, among other wonderful places. She's a staff member of two journals, Smoke Lawn Quarterly and Barren Lit. Her story, Over There, will appear in Flash Fiction American Anthology, W.W. Norton, March of 23. Tricia.
It's very nice to see everyone. I don't know why I'm so nervous. I'm suddenly very nervous. Okay, my story is called Winnipeg, a holiday story. They were 20 minutes early. Shan's boyfriend, Gilles, and his parents in from frigid Winnipeg. Devout Catholics, they didn't yet know that Shan lived with their son. Her clothes were stuffed into the hall closet. She'd make Gilles swear he'd tell them on the way over. Shan was still vacuuming, dressed in leggings and an old baby doll shirt that's read itty bitty titty bitty. She jabbed at her phone, launched a Stevie Wonder playlist. She was jumping the gun, having her meet his parents, but they were in town for the holidays, a drink and some cookies, which they would pick up at Luca en route from the hotel. The door opened, there they were. All three wore matching red sweaters. The father was thick, fit. The mother was pleasant looking, like a wry school nurse. Hair spiky at the crown, with long side-swept bangs. You must be Shan, the father said, coming in for a hug. Ha ha, I must be, Shan returned. Her head was clasped momentarily to the barrel chest. She was nothing like the guy she grew up with in Staten Island, but the father, he was familiar, not in a bad way. Gilles held a pink box tied with string. Was the guy who'd eagerly gone down on her that morning in there under that red sweater and khaki cargo pants? The parents were taking her in. Itty bitty, whoa there, Gilles said. Shan crossed her arms. I was vacuuming. Sit down, sit. I brought a little gift, the mother said. She held an African violet, velvety in its small pot. Christ, I'll definitely kill it, Shan said. Didn't people water those things with eyedroppers? The mother looked crushed. Heavens, Shan, Gilles said, forcing a laugh. Her good bra, Shan saw, was slung over the chair back. She edged over to it, but the mother was already lowering herself onto the seat. Cute! A cocktail cart, the mom exclaimed, twisting an earring. Shan recognized a certain eagerness. I'll grab some ice, Shan said. She picked up orange juice at the corner store. Hopefully they like screwdrivers. I'll help, the dad said. He followed Shan into the tiny kitchen. He opened a cupboard, found a plate for the cookies, smooth in his movements. He smelled manly, like steak and cigars, a nice cologne, like the father Shan had grown up with and had thought about as a teen when she touched herself at night. Give this a rinse? The dad asked Shan. It was an expression Gilles sometimes used, saying he was giving something a rinse rather than washing it off. For the first time, Shan met the older man's eyes. And there was Gilles, older, with a stronger current running underneath. Gilles had told Shan about the father's successes in business. They thought they could cut him loose 10 months before his pension kicked in. He told his 28-year-old supervisor what was what, dicks in hand, at the executive washroom urinal. And Gilles had told his parents about his emotional affair with a neighbor, how he'd betrayed Shan. It was why he was so attentive, to the point of irritation, to her now. It had been quite a year. Shan took the plate, soaped and rinsed, dried, and returned. The dad took a folding knife from his pocket and cut the pink box's string. He began arranging the cookies on the plate. Biscotti, butter cookies with jam and sprinkles, almond circles with pine nuts, nut meringues, sesame biscuits. Shan had grown up with these cookies too. Her mouth open, thinking he was giving her a piece of broken cookie. Instead, he'd pulled Shan's bra from his trouser pocket. She had to laugh. She took the bra, folded it, and placed it atop the cutlery in the drawer. It was she who looked away first. In the living area, Gilles was moving a tiny Christmas tree to an end table near the front window. The African violet adorned the mantel, flanked by silver candlesticks. The tree smelled good. Sunlight streamed through, and inner visions sweetened the air. Gilles' mother used one hand to hang a yellow ornament to a bare branch. Ta-da, Gilles said, taking the plate of cookies from his father. Ta-da, said Shan, inhaling the father's scent. He reminded her of Chaz Palmentieri. Isn't this nice, the mother said, turning. Both she and Gilles held glasses of wine. There was no reason to tell her the ornament was a Pikachu butt plug. Shan slipped a hand on the lower, sorry, let me start over. Shan slipped a hand on the father's lower back under his sweater. Gilles and his mother got busy refilling their glasses. Well, Merry Christmas to you too, the dad said in a low voice. He covered her free hand with his, a man's hand. Shan smiled at Gilles. He smiled back. His mom lifted her glass. Thank you. Happy holidays.
Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you, Paul.
Meg Tweed's latest collection is White Van. She's the author of 5 story collections and 5 chapbooks. She won the Twin Antlers Poetry Award for a poetry collection, Bare Bulb Swinging, and is included in Best of Small Press 2021. She teaches writing retreats and online classes hosted by Bending Genres. She's also the fiction editor of Bending Genres and associate editor at Narrative Magazine. Meg. Allison McBain is a Pushcart nominated author with over 200 short stories, poems, and articles published worldwide. Her novels have been honored with gold in the Literary Classics International Book Awards and the When Words Count Pitch Week contest, as well as being finalists in the Wishing Shelf Book Awards and Ian Book of the Year. When not writing, Ms. McBain is the associate editor for the literary magazine Scribes Microfiction. She lives in Alberta, Canada.
Thanks, Paul. And thanks everyone for having me here today. I was hoping to read two things today. First, an excerpt from my just released novel, The New Empire. It's technically a flash fiction piece because it's a story within a story, so it works as a standalone. So I'm bending the rules a little bit, if that's okay with everyone. And then last, I was hoping to read a short poem. So a little bit about my book. It's an alternate history that asks the question, what if? In my novel, the world undergoes a drastic change in the 14th century when Chinese ships land on the west coast of what we know as the Bay Area of California. Fast forward 400 years to the 1700s and a much different America than we've read about in the history books. It's now a land dominated by a cross-continental tribal confederacy that has become a world power. This new empire has been built on the backs of enslaved Chinese political prisoners. So wildly different. So my main character is Jiangxi, a slave of Onas, a renowned tribal elder. So this excerpt I'm going to read is several years into Jiangxi's story, and his master Onas is telling a traditional Haudenosaunee story to his neighbors while Jiangxi listens in. Once long ago, there was a girl who was never satisfied with anything. Her parents saw how she would mock suitors who came to court her, and their hearts were sore with the fear she would never marry. This one she would call too fat, that one too thin, this one slow of speech, that one talked too much. This one had a long face, that one had sharp eyes. She was never satisfied, and so she did not take a husband. One night when the moon was absent from the sky, a strange man came to their fire. He was beautiful in the flickering light from the flames, and his hair was long and black as midnight. I am here to take your daughter as my wife, he said. The girl rejoiced at the man's richly beaded clothes and handsome jewelry, but her mother worried and said, "None of the men of our tribe are good enough for you. Why would you marry a man you don't know?" But the girl did not listen. She left the village that night, walking behind her new husband into the darkness. After many hours, they came to his lodge house, but the girl could not sleep when she lay down inside. She thought about all she had left behind her, the good people of her village, the warm and caring lodge of her family. Her husband's home smelled like the river, an odor like dead fish. The next morning, the girl tiredly greeted the day. Her husband's beauty failed to raise her heart when he greeted her. In the sunlight, it seemed as if his eyes were cold and reflected nothing. Her mother's words echoed in her head after her husband left for the lodge for the day. If she had only been content with the simple things of her village, she would not be stuck here, alone and afraid. At that moment, there was a sound at the door. Thinking her husband had returned, she rushed to greet him. Instead of the man she had married, there was a horned snake waiting on the threshold. When it slithered off, the girl saw many more serpents behind it. She realized suddenly that her husband had disguised himself as a man, but he and his people were nothing more than ferocious snakes. She returned to the lodge and wept. Exhausted, she fell into a deep sleep. In her sleep, an old man came to her with pity and love in his gaze. "Granddaughter," he greeted her, "this trap is your own making. To escape, you must do as I say. Out the door of this lodge is a tall mountain. Climb to the top without stopping or speaking. If you hesitate, you will be lost." "I will do it," she vowed, and then she woke up. She jumped to her feet and rushed out the door. Standing there was her beautiful husband, and he cried out, "Wife, where are you going?" She bit her tongue and said nothing, just ran past him. His cries followed her. She went by an old woman who called, "Help me, I am sick." Although her heart broke at the cries, she heeded the old man's advice and did not stop. Last, she ran past a child trapped by a circle of snakes. "Help, they will bite me," he cried. Although her heart was in anguish, she ran past with tears streaming from her eyes. She came to the mountain's edge and began to climb. Her hands tore, her dress became tattered, and she was pummeled by wind and rain. Finally, she reached the top. Waiting for her was the old man of her dream. Looking back, she was afraid when she saw the snakes had followed her, but the old man pulled back his hand and threw something at the serpents, something that flashed and burned. It was lightning. Now she knew the old man was Hino the Thunderer. Hino threw lightning after lightning, and the sky played drums of thunder. When the last serpent lay dead, Hino said gently, "Thank you, my granddaughter. These creatures brought much ruin to the true people." The girl returned to her village, and Hino told the people of her bravery. There was much rejoicing, and when the first good man asked her to be his wife, she went with him and was happy for the rest of her days. The fire popped as Onas subsided, and the words that had held them captive released their grip. The tribal men left, and Jiangxi thought about the story. The girl in the story was spoiled. Jiangxi hated her for having the best of everything and being contented with none. It reminded him of the slaveholders, overflowing with abundance and giving the slaves nothing in return. Jiangxi's plan was simple. He would be the beautiful serpent in their midst. He would smile and nod and be agreeable, and he would lull them to following him into the dark. He would find a way to free the slaves, all of them, not just himself. He would find a way, any way he could, to lead his people to freedom. Thanks. And so I'm going to end a little differently. I have one short poem. It's ABCDarian, which is basically each line has to start with the letter of the alphabet all the way to Z, which is quite tough when you get to the ending letters. It's called A Poem for the Unpoetical. Beyond rhyme or reason lies the ABCDarian. Can one person sell skeptics a poem? Don't tell me that it can't be done. Every reader likes to experiment now and then, for what is life without spiciness going down our throats like a pebble, even if it's hard for us to swallow? I don't know where I'd be without words jumping me from story to story, even knowing that my life's chapter will end too soon. Long after I've dipped my final pen and made my escape, no matter how many words I've written on the page, there will still be tales left untold, poems unsung, a life of creation quietly disappearing without fanfare. Rather than dwell on morbid musings, I will shout from the rooftops all my thoughts today and let loose what I need to say until the heavens ring with the very essence of what it means to be a writer, a poet, a scribbler of tales, an exennial whose generation will one day be gone. You see, when my time comes, there will be 0 stories I regret telling, especially since they will outlast me. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Allison. Well, just to keep you folks appraised,
I'm back.
she's back.
Do you hear me, Paul?
Very clearly.
Yes, I can hear you.
Very sadly, but you can hear me very clearly.
Yes, I can, but you missed your turn.
Oh, Paul.
No way.
Okay, go ahead, take it.
I love you. And you guys are amazing. And I wanted to write more comments, but I was so freaked out. I was like in this whole world of talking to myself and it was freaking me out and shit. Okay. First one is called Memory Freeze. When the snow reached the windowsills, I was no longer a virgin. Milton Pinkowski writhed and clattered around on top of me, while guttural noises ferreted out of various orifices I didn't want to pinpoint. A sharp stick punctured me in the lower regions that had previously been visited by myself, tampons, and one doctor my mom insisted on taking me to, who poked around in there like an archaeologist. It was a receptacle for sharp objects, I decided, as I watched the snow piling up and packed inches, darkening the grungy mold stench. Don't want to see anything that surrounds me. Basement. Milton sputtered once more, shuddered, then slid out of me and flopped onto his back, exhausted and looking confused. There was spittle in the corner of his mouth. I turned away and we both stared at the pipes on the ceiling with our hands crossed on our stomachs. Our pants were still buckling at our ankles. There was nothing to say. That's one. Just some shorties. Okay, let's see here. This one is not quite a shorty, so I have another one here. Okay. Now that I've taken up all your time trying to get in here. Okay. Religion. Every night, my grandmother limps out of a liquor store with the submissive stoop of the genuflected and the promise of a liturgy to come in a bottle. A radiant old face with a slight tremor of the merciful, holding a brown paper bag reverently out in front of her with both hands, as a priest holds his chalice. And what would be the difference? She has been living, breathing, and sucking down the blood of Christ in a lifetime of unparalleled singularity that the clergy can only read about and shamelessly attempt to enact, mouthing their long-winded, incredulous interpretations of the Bible, done up like showgirls in their mawkish vestments. That's another one. Should I read one more? Is
Yes.
that a yes? Okay. Half a lotus. Mason is a godless godhead. She moves to India and follows a trail her words make. She spreads a gospel that no one disputes. If they attempt to disagree, she stretches a smirk of the all-knowing and continues preaching. Her language is old and reeks of the Bhagavad Gita. She can quote an ancient legend that is untraceable. She wanders over a land that encompasses nothing of a past she embodies like a country. She can steal 100 wallets and 3 leather jackets from a leather shop in less time than it takes to sew up a loose button, or say 9 times a stitch in time saves 9. She can cart off an espresso machine and a juicer from a kitchen shop faster than it takes a shop owner to look right through her. An Ayurvedic astrologer told her that she was a child of India. Is a girl born in Indiana a mistake of just 2 letters on a Scrabble board? Mason tells anyone who will listen that she has saved her mom from the blackness of memory and loneliness. She did not take out loans from banks and shaft every partner she ever worked with. A lien may have been put on her property when she departed. That is the karma of those left behind. She moves forward and there is not a wisp of her when she looks back. She can do half a lotus and cry for hours through a night that whispers of capitalism and exile. Her eyes are swollen and red. They speak of days, months of silent sobbing, but she tells the family she lives with that she has been up all night meditating. She can walk to the market and back without shoes. Mason grew up playing football. She wore torn up sneakers and told people to fuck off. She was born on land familiar with corn. She did every drug she could get her hands on. This was the godless Godhead, a place where no bad thoughts troubled to grow. It was a voidless history of mushrooms, LSD, and getting laid. She gives up bad haircuts and sweatpants for saris. She steals a trinket now and again to keep in practice. She can hold someone's attention for more than 2 hours before they start yawning. She is getting a visa to stay in India for years. It is a place where she is who she is. There are no expectations of a white face with blackened feet. She used to hear the word crazy and laugh. The world of Prozac was mocking her. She detects far deeper voices rasping from the mouths of infants in India. She only has to listen to them calling to know which dirt she stands on. For most of her life, she was married to hatred. She had boils lanced off her back. She smacked a man in the face more than once for saying something intolerable. Now she lets the boils come and go. When she fights with the family, she just moves on. This is a land of empty bowls and open doors. People speak of family in India and ask her about the family she left. She tells them her mother died and she has a daughter. That is a lie. She tells them she held her mother's dead body. She bathed her mother in tap water in Indiana and dressed her in lavender and chartreuse. Her mother is not dead. She had a stroke. Patsy knows this because Mom lives with her while Mason runs around India in bare feet lying about the past. In India, Mason walks around for a week covered in ashes, she says, were her mother's, and then bathes in the Ganges like the holy ones. Every night when she rocks and cries, she sees a land of opportunity that betrayed her. She is business savvy and spends hours each day with a storekeeper telling him how to bring in more money to his shop or cafe. She talks him into hiring her for only a meal or two each day. Her needs are few now. He believes he can't live without her until one day he discovers he can't live with her. She storms out of each town with dirty feet, a necklace or some silk fabric stuffed on the front of her sari, and a mantra of peace and prosperity on her lips. There are other towns and other words to fill up those vast cavities of loss she has imagined. Thank you.
Meg, that was worth waiting for.
Oh, thank you, Paul.
Mickey Aronoff scribbles away in New Mexico. Her work appears in New World Writing, McQueen's Quintillate, Tiny Molecules, The Disappointed Housewife, Bending Genres, Milk Candy Review, Gone Lawn, Dyslexia, The Dribble Droppel Review, Flash Boulevard, and elsewhere. She has received Pushcart, Best of the Net, and Best Microfiction nominations. Mickey.
Thank you. That was worth waiting for, Meg. Everybody's readings were so great. I'm such a dinosaur. I don't really know how to handle chat, or I would be telling each one of you individually. Going to read a shortish. Can you hear me okay? I'm using new thingies. Okay.
Yeah.
Shortish piece, a response to a contest with the theme of envy that Ms. Lexia ran a little while back. So cheers to Meg Pokris, who was the judge, and Ms. Lexia for the publication. It's called Keeping Count. One of us is the pretty one and the other one has the smart. So I can't say it started with me and I can't say it started with her. But soon after it started, she hooked 2 fingers and ripped off my nose. What could I do? I stomped on the glasses that slipped off my face, buried the shards in her blancmange. For a minute, we both felt bad. We are, after all, bonded. She offered me her last stick of Beeman's gum, and I chewed it and gave it back. And thus it continued. She poured the bottle of Shalimar I could no longer smell down the sink, so I purloined the pearls she got for graduation. Later, I torched her raven-haired lover. He sparked like the 4th of July. I invited her to the memorial picnic, and she stole his ashes back. What could I do? I filched her fingernails, easier said than done, but she'll never scratch me again. For a second, we both felt regret. Then she snapped my writing stick in half, so I sold her prized Appaloosa. And on it goes. We've kept count since that Tuesday in May of 1932 that Mother gavodded through the front gate and never returned. What else could we do? We work so hard at it these days. We hiss through yellow teeth, clench our gnarly fingers into fists. Chumps of chignon fraying and flying everywhere. Bunions banging into baseboards. Eyeballs rolling on the floor. The end.
Thank you. Sandra Arnold is an award-winning writer who lives in New Zealand. She's the author of 5 books, including The Ash, the Well, and the Bluebell, Soul Etchings, Sing No Sad Song. Her short fiction has been widely published and anthologized internationally. She's received nominations for the Best Small Fictions, Best Microfictions, and the Pushcart Prize. She has a PhD in creative writing from Central Queensland University, Australia. Sandra Arnold, please.
Thank you, Paul. I've got 2 pieces to read. The first one is called The Red Shoes, and that will be published in Paris Lit Up in February. The Red Shoes. Violet stopped in front of the shoe shop every day on her way to school and allowed herself exactly 3 minutes to gaze at the red shoes in the window. The shiny red leather, the silky red ribbons, the silver toe and heel taps. At school, she pictured herself wearing the shoes and imagined how they would sound on the old wooden floor of her dancing class. At the end of the month, her mother said she'd saved up a bit of money by buying all her cleaning products on special. So there was enough left over to buy the shoes that weekend. On Saturday morning, Violet was up early, washed and dressed with her mother's breakfast ready on a tray, in the vain hope of hurrying her through the morning routines of polishing, vacuuming, cleaning the windows, washing the back of the oven and the vacuum cleaner cord, scrubbing the back door step, and finally covering all the furniture with the old brown blankets. Violet no longer asked her mother why she did this every day, when no one else's mother did, because the question made her mother look sad. She once made the mistake of saying how embarrassing it was when her friends came by to play and saw all their furniture covered up with old blankets. Her mother's response had been to curl up on the sofa and cry. At last, her mother finished her routine Saturday cleaning and was dressed and polished. They were on the bus. They were walking through the front door of the shoe shop. Her mother was frowning. Violet was smiling. She was holding the shiny shoes to her nose and sniffing the new leather smell. She was rubbing the red ribbons against her cheek. She was slipping her feet into the shoes and fastening the red ribbons into perfectly symmetrical bows. She was dancing on the shoe shop floor and was thrilled to hear the tap, tap, tap. The clickety-clack of the silvery taps sounded so good on the floor of the dancing school that the teacher had to keep reminding Violet to stop staring down at her new shiny shoes while doing the shuffle brush strike, and instead to lift her chin and smile. At the end of the class, Violet put her shoes back in her brown paper bag. The other girls glanced at the bag and then at each other. Although they said nothing, Violet felt herself shrinking. On her way home, she decided the best solution was to get an after-school paper round and save up to buy a proper case to carry her shoes in. A brown paper bag was not a worthy receptacle for such beautiful shoes. They needed a proper case in imitation snakeskin with red satin lining. Her mother had promised not to buy any more mold spray and bleach until they were on special, so there'd be a little extra money to pay for pink ballet shoes with pink ribbons, and then a pair of silver ballroom shoes. However, there was still detergent, disinfectant, oven cleaner, window cleaner, and floor polish to replace soon, given the rate her mother went through cleaning fluids. So Violet knew it would be many months before her mother would save up enough money to get her those shoes. Violet wondered if she could also fit in a morning milk round before school, and together with the money from the paper round, she might have enough to buy the shoes herself. Once she had the right shoes and a proper case for them, there might be enough money to enroll in dancing classes every evening and all day Saturday, instead of just once a week. If not, she could spend Sundays weeding people's gardens to pay for the extra classes. If she could just do all that, there would be nothing else in the whole world that she would ever wish for again. A thin slice of moon and a sprinkling of stars lit the empty street as Violet tap-danced her way home. Her head was full of music and dance steps and plans. She was humming her favorite tune as she opened the front door and saw her mother sticking tape around the sides, tops, and bottoms of the doors and windows. She'd cleaned the whole house, her mother explained, and now she was sealing all the rooms to prevent dust from sneaking in through the cracks. She turned and smiled at Violet. It was the first time Violet had seen her smile since her father left. I found a solution, her mother said. She'd set up a tent in the back garden where they would live all through the summer. On cold, wet days, they would move into the garage. They would cook on the barbecue. They would only go into the house to use the bathroom. That way, they could save a lot of money because only the bathroom would need cleaning. There would certainly be enough for dancing shoes and dancing classes and pretty dresses for the end of year recital. The only thing was, she added, though it really wouldn't be a hardship, Violet mustn't tell anyone they were living in a tent in the backyard, and she mustn't bring anyone home. And the second one is a prose poem, which will be published in Muddy River Review sometime soon. This one is very close to my heart. It's called What Sound Does a Bear Make When It's Stung by a Bee? You told me then that when all this was over, you were going to buy a white horse and train it for jumping. You told your friends you had no intention of carking it because you had too much stuff to do. But all the willpower in the world couldn't keep you inside a body that had become uninhabitable. Just before you left it, you asked me what sound a bear makes when it's stung by a bee. You were in the roaring of stags on autumn nights, encountering hooves and wind in the trees, and the smell of hay and oiled saddles, in newborn lambs and star-filled skies. In the rowan tree growing strong by the paddocks, you said When you saw the mountains, you knew you were home. Thank you.
Sandra, thank you. Our next reader is Karen Schaubern. Her flash fiction appears in 70 international literary magazines, journals, and anthology. She's the editor of award-winning flash fiction anthology, The Group of Seven Reimagined, contemporary stories inspired by historic Canadian paintings. She curates Vancouver Flash Fiction, an online resource hub, and Miramachi Flash, a monthly literary column. In her spare time, she is a seasoned family therapist. Karen.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. I have two pieces. One is a micro, and the second one is a longer flash. Monosyllabic words. When I get home from school, the police are already parked in front of my house, amber lights screaming. My brother has pulled a knife on the housekeeper. This time, she has found girly magazines hidden under his mattress and outed him to our mother. It's a revolving joust of humiliation and retribution, Orthodox Christian revulsion versus nonchalant, pubescent privacy. She thinks she's winning. He's going to kill her. When the police interview me 30 years later, I flash back to that day, those times, and Zora. My mother in her quilted housecloak and bunny ear slippers running interference, flirting with the officers, insisting it was a silly misunderstanding. Her giggles zippering up my spine. I go silent with an imperceptible moan, knowing then what was going to happen at some point down the line. I didn't think it would take this long for them to nail him. I reply with a sober blank stare, monosyllabic words, and fidget with my aching hand, rubbing the space where he took my 2 digits. That's the first one. Thank you. This is the longer flash, which actually just came out yesterday. The 3 times Lola went down. The 3 times Lola went down, we pretended as if nothing had happened. And nothing did at first. She slid off the pew like a slinky, all coiled and springy, her arms bendy like Raggedy Ann. There were no warning signs, she would say. No blurred vision, seeing of spots, ringing in the ears, or sensation that the room was spinning. Each episode came on like an eclipse, a gradual fading to black, except for the glowing white corona that hovered above like a halo. Each occurrence a revelation. When she came to, Lola's speech was musical and snappy, a distinct change in vernacular. It took us a while to catch on, to recognize the patterns. The roll of her tongue, click of her palate, struts and strolls over multiple consonants, hops and skips over double vowels. She spoke with an exaggerated sing-song, a 2-step rhyme, and fancy tongue twisters that made us blush. For an unassuming, mousy housewife of few simple words, words that flowed ever so softly, they almost sent you to sleep, Lola was full of beans. At first, worshippers took to their knees, expert at reviving the fallen. Some made proper use of their hymnals, others simply fanned. Is there a doctor in the house? Lola's pulse taken, forehead dabbed, holy water sipped, and yellow floral skirt smoothed. She was given a clean bill of health. Her fainting and spirited display was chalked up to the unseasonably warm weather. What else could it be? The second time Lola went down, Della was approaching the altar, her bouquet of rosy petunias drooping gently against her big belly. The tizzy she aroused, Lola, not Della, We all knew what Della was carrying. We weren't so sure about Lola. A flurry of chatter and gossip pulsed through the pews. Something's definitely off. Whispers and tales were spun. A nosy Parker sent rumors through a broken telephone. She just wants the attention. She's faking it. The unsavory sentiment nested in the shadows. The third time Lola went down, Bertha was thumping the pipe organ, bellows swelling and collapsing, congregants fervently swaying in glorious praise and song. As the rousing pitch climbed higher, Lola began her descent, spooling and kinking and pleating. Her mumbo jumbo was chevron and checkered, zigzag and chintz. Her tongue performed high wire acts like a flea circus. Moses supposes his toes are roses. Mrs. Puggy Wuggy has a square cut punt. Parishioners were in awe. Some believed Lola exalted. Others thought her possessed. We gathered around to witness her testimony, but no one could decipher the riddles, unscramble the puzzles. Was she for real? Everyone guessed. No one knew. From then on, church became a popular place. Packed to the rafters and crammed like sardines, the collection plate full. Pastor Jeremiah was not a fan. Lola's fainting became a holy distraction. The Sunday service taking second fiddle to her kerfuffle. The pastor would stand at the pulpit with one eye cast in her direction, praying that this would not be her day. Lola kept all of us guessing, attentive, not to the sermon, not to the promise of the gospel, not to the second coming, but for the next hullabaloo. We started taking bets. We'd look up from our book of common praise, swivel our heads back towards Lola to see if she was on her way down. Elbow the fella or gal sitting next to us to alert them to her imminent fall. We'd wager on which parlance would burst forth, necks craning like swans to catch the first utterance. And just as Lola was reviving, Bertha would work the bellows into a brisk tempo, suspenseful, like charge music at a stadium hockey game, a stirring backdrop for the reveal. When Lola would walk in the door, we'd sit up tall in our pews, our hands folded neatly in our laps, listening intently, not to Pastor Jeremiah or to the unchanging heart of Christ, but for sounds of Lola slipping off her wafer-thin cushion. Thank you.
Love that, Laura. Karen, thank you. Our final reader tonight is Ilan Barnahama. His new novel, Escape Route, came out last year or earlier this year in Running Wild Press. Set in New York City during the tumultuous late 60s and told by the first generation son of Holocaust survivors and New York Mets fan who becomes obsessed with the Vietnam War and with finding an escape route for his family for when he believes the US will round up and incarcerate its Jews. His words have appeared in 10 by 10 flash fiction, Boog City, Jewish fiction, Drunk Monkeys, Entropy, Rough Cut Press, and many others. He was the flash fiction editor for the Fourth magazine in LA, has taught college writing, worked with at-risk youth, had a gig as a radio news guy, and did a mediocre job as a short order cook. Ilan.
Thanks for having me. I'm going to just read a flash piece that I wrote during the Flash Nano November piece. So it's fairly new. It's called Kaddish. All day long, I dream about my sister. I am frightened that if I stop dreaming, I will lose her a second time. My sister took her life 3 days after New Year's. When my parents told me, I thought I was dreaming, but I was not. I told them I did not understand, but I did. That night, I dreamt I was crossing the street. I looked both ways and the street was clear, but when I stepped into the road, I got hit by a submarine. My family was Jewish, but we were not religious. For my parents, being Jewish was all about the stories, and they adapted the holidays to focus on those stories. They raised my sister and me to believe that the stories were truer than the truth. After my sister killed herself, my parents were in shock, so they let tradition and the rabbi lead them through the Jewish burial rituals, which meant the funeral service was the following day. It was freezing at the cemetery. Back in our house, the rabbi cut my t-shirt, which I continued to wear each of the 7 days of Shiva as the tradition called for. The she-shirt was one of my favorites, and I knew the rabbi would cut it. I wanted to lose something I valued. Also, I strongly disliked collared shirts and hated ties and button-down shirts even more. And when I showed my parents what I planned to wear to the service, they told me funerals were solemn occasions, sad occasions, and fashion had no part in them. Fashion did not equal respect, my father said. And my mother added, if anybody thought I did not have respect for my sister, then they had no business being at her funeral, including the rabbi. During Shiva, people came over to me and talked to me like they were reading greeting cards. Your sister did her best, I was told. Yes, I said, but other people did not, I added to myself. Your sister will always be with you, someone offered, but they were wrong, and that is what made me sad. The rabbi sat down with my parents and me and said that dealing with death was hard when you're young because you have so little experience. And he said it's hard when you're old because the old have too much. My family took meals together in the kitchen, just the three of us, with a dozen friends standing around waiting and wanting to offer us more to get us something we needed. So not so much alone. When it was time to say Kaddish, they rounded up the men. 10 males were necessary to say Kaddish, or it didn't count. I had a bar mitzvah 2 years prior, so I counted. In fact, I counted more than my mother, who had given up space in her body to create my sister and me. I thought we should read Kaddish by Allen Ginsberg because my sister loved Ginsberg. So I ran up to her room and grabbed the book, but I saw that his Kaddish was 20 pages long, so I went with their Kaddish. My sister was the best mind of my generation, and she was destroyed by sadness. My friend Harry came over after school and let out and said I looked like I was getting angry, so he shepherded me outside and lit a joint. My friend Harry said he'd never been to a Shiva before. He said it was like a party for sad people. When we went back inside, someone I had never met came up to me and said he knew my sister from college. He said he had cancer and that he would take 10 cancers over depression. That's it. Thank you.
Elon, that's an incredible story. Thank you for closing out the night.
Thank
And
you for having me.
thank you all for making this just a fine reading and a great end to the year. And we'll see you next year at FBomb.
Paul, thanks for hosting all of these throughout the year.
Yes, thank you, Paul.
Great. Thank you very much.
Our FBomb leader. Really appreciate it.
Yay, thank you, Paul.
community.
You're amazing. Woo!
Thanks, Paul.
That's interesting.
Thank you, Paul.
I get the benefit of this,
Thank you, Paul.
of your work. Thank you. Robert, it's good to get you out here. I've tried for a long time. Thank you for coming out. Megster,
Thanks, everybody,
you.
for the wonderful reading, and thanks to Paul for the wonderful show he puts on every month.
That's right.
That's right.
Absolutely.
okay, yay for Paul.
Yay for
That's
Paul.
right.
Damn it.
Thank you all. And
Enjoy the holidays.
Happy holiday, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Bye.
For having me.
thank you.
Hi, Foster.
Hello.
Foster, I hope we hear you soon.
Yes.
Does anyone know what's happening with Poets and Writers magazine.
Hmm.
A lot of people have not gotten their latest issue, the November, December issue. I haven't gotten it. And I called them and I got some convoluted explanation that I didn't understand. Did everyone get their issues?
Mm-mm. I got
No.
the same thing, something, they sent an email of some sort. I can't even remember what it was. Did you get an email from them?
No, I simply called them and I got an explanation, but I didn't really understand it.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with them. Everything's going down. God knows. Right?
True.
Hmm.
True.
I know. Isn't that so positive of me? Thank you.
True.
Oh, God. Anyway, it's so good to see you all and so good to hear you. Amazing. Yes, Foster, next time
Next time what?
we want to hear you
Read.
read.
You read.
Hello.
I like just listening to you guys.
That's the interesting thing about FBomb is that I have a good group of people who just come to listen.
Mhm.
Um,
That is good.
but yes, you can point at
My
yourself,
doggy.
but a really great group of people who come to read. And it's my honor. And I thank you all.
And next time you read, Paul, too, by the way.
Yes. Yes.
If my name comes out of the hat, I'll read.
No,
Otherwise,
I want you wearing the hat, dude.
you wear my hat.
I love your hat.
This is the one you wore, babe.
I know. I have pictures still, Paul. Come on.
So do I.
That was a highlight. Okay. Thank you so much. So good to see all of you.
Thank you all.
Hi, and
Austin, thank you for
Francine.
coming out.
You're
Thank you
amazing.
so much, Paul.
So
Loved your work.
prolific, girl.
Thank you.
Every time I turn, Francine has a new book coming out.
Yeah, she's annoying, isn't she?
I am. I am
I got the package of 4 books, and now there's a new one I got to get. I got another one. I got to have the full collection of Francine Witt. Come on.
We all do. It's mandatory.
Oh, hell yes.
You guys.
Okay.
Hi, Roxanne.
Have a great weekend.
You bet.
Oh, and Roxanne is here now. You were so good. What a reader you are. You're like a actress or something. You're so good.
Thank you. It's so great to hear all of you. We
Yeah.
need a bookcase for Francine. She gets her own bookcase.
She needs her own bookcase. Exactly. It's very true.
I have some of her chapbooks, her old chapbooks, her poetry chapbooks too.
Yeah.
Save them. They're going to be worth a lot of cash sometime.
Yeah.
All right. You got to
And
save
the
them.
new book, Francine, is wonderful.
Thank
I'm just digging into it. I
It
want
is.
to read
so
every
much.
story with real care.
Thank you so
They're
much.
beautiful.
Okay, good night all.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, guys.